Hey, what's up, YouTube? How you doing? It's JMV1701 here. I'm here to start a new venture on YouTube. This is video number 1 of my beer review blog. Don't really have a name for it yet, but I'll come up with one eventually. Basically, I've been passionate about beer for a long time. I'm not an alcoholic or anything. I just like beer. I like different types of beer. I like trying new beers. I like pairing beers with certain types of food. And I wanted to bring this to YouTube in some way and just rate beers and just try. I'm not, by no means am I an expert on beer or anything like that, but I just wanted to give you guys an overview of what we're going to be doing. I have a Stella Artois chalice, which I'll be using as my main vessel for drinking beer. I'll keep it clean. And obviously, you know, pouring the beer and head is going to be part of the review. There's going to be a lot of different things that go into it. I'm not usually that enthusiastic about head or anything like that. I know there's a lot of real tasters out there that are very much into that stuff, and I'm not so much. But, you know, we'll talk about it. For me, it's more about taste. I'm a big session beer guy. I like beers that I can have a few and they don't kill me. They don't weigh me down a whole lot. You know, if you go out and spend some time with friends, you want to have beers that, you know, are not too much, not too crazy. So basically tonight what we'll start with is I'm going to read from right off the Wikipedia page. I'm actually doing it right now, so if I'm not looking at the camera, then don't worry about it. But beer is an alcoholic beverage produced by the saccharification of starch and fermentation of the resulting sugar. The starch and saccharification enzymes are often derived from malted cereal grains, most commonly malted barley and malted wheat. Most beer is also flavored with hops, which add bitterness and act as a natural preservative, though other flavorings such as herbs or fruit may occasionally be included. The preparation of beer is called brewing. Real quickly, I'm going to go down to the varieties part. I want to talk about different varieties of beer. So the main varieties of beer: pale ale. Pale ale is a beer which uses a top fermenting yeast and predominantly pale malt. It is one of the world's major beer styles. Stout. Stout and porter are dark beers made using roasted malts or roast barley, and typically brewed with slow fermenting yeast. There are a number of variations including Baltic Porter, Dry Stout, and Imperial Stout. The name porter was first used in 1721 to describe a dark brown beer popular with the street and river porters of London. The same beer later also became known as stout, though the word stout had been used as early as 1677. The history and development of stout and porter are intertwined. The next one is mild. Mild ale is a predominantly malty palate. It is usually dark colored with an ABV of 3% to 3.6%, although there are lighter hued miles as well as stronger examples, reaching 6% or higher. Wheat. Wheat beer is brewed with a large proportion of wheat, although it often contains a significant proportion of malted barley. Wheat beers are usually top fermented. In Germany, they have to be by law. The flavor of wheat beers varies considerably depending upon the specific style. Next one is lager, which I'll just read the first because it's a pretty long one. Lager is the English name for cool fermenting beers of Central European origin. Pale lagers are the most commonly consumed beers in the world. The name lager comes from the German lagern, or to store. As brewers around Bavaria stored beer in cool cellars and caves during the warm summer months, these brewers noticed that the beers continued to ferment and to also clear of sediment when stored in cool conditions. Lager yeast is a cool bottom fermenting yeast and typically undergoes primary fermentation. This is too much science right now, but the last beer is Lambic, a beer of Belgium, naturally fermented using wild yeasts rather than cultivated. Many of these are not strains of brewer's yeast and may have significant differences in aroma and sourness. Yeast varieties such as Brettanomyces bruxellensis. You get the point. So those are the different styles of beer. To give you an idea, pale ale, I know that I don't really, for some reason I'm blanking on like a major type of beer for pale ale. But I know lagers are, obviously in the Philly region we know Yuengling. Budweiser is a lager. Stout, we all know about Guinness. Um, Wheat beers, Blue Moon, Hoegaarden. And those are the types of beer for the most part that I will be doing. Actually, today I'm going to real quick look up what I'm actually going to be drinking for you today, because I just got a... Okay. So I got a case of Yuengling. It was on sale. There were 4 different types of Yuengling in this case, 2 of which I know very well. Yuengling Lager, which is around these parts just known as lager. Yuengling Light Lager, which is one of my favorite light beers because it doesn't taste like a light beer. It's pretty good. Excuse me. Yuengling Black and Tan, and Yuengling's Lord Chesterfield Ale. So I realized that I've only ever had the 2 Yuenglings. They have a premium lager. They have a couple other types of beers. They brew about 6 or 7 beers, maybe even more. I might be selling them short. But I've lived in Philly, forever, my whole life, and I've never tried any of the other Yuenglings. So I really wanted to try one of these other Yuenglings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run to my fridge because I got it cooling right now. I just bought it, so I wanted to throw it in the freezer and let it cool. So I'll be back in about 2 seconds, okay? Yep. Stay. 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 Sorry, I'm yelling at the dog. So this is Yuengling Black and Tan. Let's move in on that there a little bit. So as you can see, it is a dark brewed porter. I actually read a couple of reviews. There's beeradvocate.com, which is one of my favorite websites. I'll be referring to them a lot. I'm going to be posting some... Hey, buddy. Dog. He's not going to be drinking any beer. Anyway, so let's open this bad boy up, and this obviously... Let me just be real quick about this type of video. It's not going to be this long in the future. I just wanted to give you an overview of the beer and what I was going to be doing, how I was going to be pouring, things like that. In the future, I'm just going to launch right into it. So I know you guys are probably sick of hearing me right now. Just get to the review, all right? So here I am. So Yuengling Black and Tan. Let's open her up. We'll start with smell. All right, definitely you smell that stout flavor. Pretty smooth smelling. Nothing really grabs you too much. So let's pour this bad boy and we'll see what we got here. Oh yeah, quite a dark beer. Quite a dark beer. I didn't do real good with the head that time, but... Alright, so once you pour it, yeah, it's definitely very smooth. You don't really get a whole lot of hoppy flavor or any kind of, I guess with stouts usually you do get more of a smooth smell. Not much smell at all, but let's just give it a taste. All right. Well, first impressions, hardly any aftertaste. It's pretty tame. From an alcoholic standpoint, it doesn't really taste like there's much going on here. I wouldn't really say from the standpoint of porters and other porters and dark beers that I've had in the past, it doesn't really knock me out too much. Definitely the taste is kind of alkaline. I don't know, it's kind of a weird instant taste that you get on your tongue, and then nothing. It just fades away. Like there's not really any aftertaste. I'm going to see if there's an ABV on here, but there is. Does not appear to be. Let me go back to my Beer Advocate and see. It says 4.70 alcohol by volume. Let's see what some of the people have written. Yeah, I mean, most of the other reviews that I'm seeing on beeradvocate.com are pretty middle of the pack. Most people are saying it's, decent, not something you can drink, but it's not really something that I think they would uh, buy a whole case of, if that makes any sense. It's the case test, as I like to call it. Um, the case test for me is important. Would you buy a whole case of beer? I'd buy a whole case of lager. I'd buy a whole case of lager light. I'd buy a whole case of Boston lager. I'd buy a whole case of Yards. Yards is probably my favorite brewery ever. Seriously, their stuff is awesome. They only brew ales and they have one stout, and they're just amazing. But we'll talk more about Yards in the future. As far as the black and tan goes, let's say I haven't even thought of a rating system. We'll start by doing a 5-star system. I'll give it 2.5 stars out of 5. It's, not great. It's not horrible. It's middle of the road. Smell, not much. Taste, aftertaste, nothing. Alcohol by volume, nothing to write home about. So I think I'll stick with 2.5 out of 5 with my first ever beer review of Yuengling's Black and Tan. So hopefully what I'll do with the next one is I'll try the Lord Chesterfield Ale, which I've also never tried before, and we'll see what they have going on with that. But until then, stay thirsty, my friends. You like that?